And, I just as a way of explaining, there was some conversation about the minutes as I presented them, I don't know, back a few weeks ago. And so I did listen to the recording of our minutes of 7/21. Because AJ wasn't present at that meeting, I was drafted to draft them. And so I did do that. And having listened to the recording twice, I did determine that I did write in capital letters some quotes, which I thought would answer some of the questions about, and I did alter the draft somewhat to respond to the questions about the way I had described the events of that meeting. So I hope that that is satisfactory. The reason I put the caps was just because I took those quotes directly from the recording. Okay.
Bob, could you forward them to me as well?
Yeah, hopefully I'll be back. I'm going to go over to email now and see what I can do.
Okay.
Right? One moment.
Maybe
you
somebody
just
else.
want
Yeah,
Bob?
George can send it. So you just stay where you are, Bob.
Yeah, I'm going to send it right now.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
Susie,
I feel like the minutes that Bob took I reflected his perspective, and that having gone back to the video myself, I really had a different perspective, which is that the discussion around whether the money, the 312, belonged in one place or another, there were lots of parts to that discussion that aren't in the minutes, but I don't really want to spend a lot more time on these minutes. I feel like we have a lot of moving forward stuff to do. So I would just say that the perception that it was discussed by multiple people, Steve Schmidt, Gail, ourselves, is part of the minutes that I think I wanted reflected.
Not sure what that means, but I just tried to represent the gist of what happened that night. And I focused on what the finance committee did, because that, after all, is the finance committee was having a meeting. So if you want to vote to change it or whatever, that's up to you. That's what I present now after doing quite a bit of work to review the whole thing.
The only thing I would request is if we're going to submit these minutes to the final record, that we lowercase all those uppercase sections. I understand what you're saying, Bob, and why you did it, but in the long run, if somebody's reading this, they might misinterpret why those are in uppercase or not.
That makes sense to me. I just did it for our purposes for tonight.
Yep, no, understood. But I'm just thinking for the.
I can modify that, send it to the secretary, and let him proceed from there. If that's what you'd like me to do, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I guess I want to offer an amendment to the meeting minutes that says the case for having the 312,000 go back to free cash was made by, was discussed. There was, because there was reasons, there are reasons, there were reasons.
So where would you make that change? How would you make, what would you say?
I guess after the paragraph that Bob disagrees and before the paragraph that says George thinks, I would say that the MLP had also discussed paying back all of the money, and they hadn't come to consensus. So I guess I just say that it was discussed by different people at the meeting. Leave it at that. It wasn't cut and dry. It wasn't only one path. it was clear that we could discuss, we could have the money go to, back to capital stabilization, and I don't feel like that. That's a little bit in the part that's in capital letters saying, from George saying we could reevaluate next year. But it was actually in the discussion of that to do it then, not wait just till the next year.
Are you referring to the fact that the MLP had talked about it at their meetings and weren't unanimous? Is that the
That's
case?
true. And then there were people on the finance committee that could see it that way as a result of the history. And
So in that spot, we could write the MLP representatives mentioned that they were unable to unanimously decide how much of the debt to fund.
One second here.
Simple as that?
If I may just interject, the MLP came to that meeting with a consensus that they wanted all the money applied to the debt. They didn't want to, and the word payback was used over and over by members of the people contributing to the discussion. And so I think Susie and Becky objected to me saying that it was considered to be, or it might have been considered to be a loan or something. So I took that word out of it, but the word payback was used. Pay back the town was used over and over. And the idea that this town, that the money was not expressly dedicated, we know what the argument is. This was the gist of the disagreement. This is what we voted on. This is what we discussed, all of us. But the MLP did represent that they supported putting the money, keeping the money and putting it towards the debt, reducing the debt. That was their position. That's what they present. Ask Jim. He's on the MLP.
I don't want to argue these points anymore. I did look at the tape again, or listen to the tape, and I know on certain minutes, I have the time written down, that it wasn't a unanimous decision. There was not unanimous, but there was a strong opinion to repay the town all of the debt. That was what Steve Schmidt said. So I'm just saying it wasn't a done deal. It wasn't only one way that it could go. And the discussion was about that fact that it really could have been seen in other ways. And that's what I think the minutes should reflect.
I think Bob is frozen, or
Yeah.
Have actual language.
He's down on the,
Language that we can agree to enter or not. We need to make an edit. Somebody's got to tell us what the edit is.
And I'm suggesting I make a motion that we edit a sentence in after the paragraph that starts with Bob disagrees and before the part that says George thinks, that there was a discussion with members from the Finance Committee and the MLP showing, I don't know what the right word is. It was discussed that there could be, all the money could go back to the town or not.
I'm sorry, the first paragraph you referred, you said Bob disagrees. I'm looking for that paragraph.
It's after it's after Rita's quote written in capital letters.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you. Could you just, Susie, could you just rephrase or restate what you're proposing?
Okay, and you know where it is going to be on where I'm proposing to put it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The members of the MLP and the Finance Committee and the Select Board all discussed reasons why the money could be put back in capital stabilization.
Generic. We did talk about that. We did say that.
I think
have that
look,
conversation.
I think that I think the minutes are fine as they are. I disagree with you, Susie, on whether this was presented as an alternative. Steve Schmidt and Gail Huntress put up various different scenarios as to how the money, as how they were going to deal with the debt and the ban. That was really what the subject of the whole business was about. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to use all available funds to pay down the debt. And then I might add is the town's debt, as well as indirectly the MLP's debt. And that's what we strove, or we're striving to do. And I think the minutes that Bob has taken here reflect that.
Becky, you're on mute.
Okay, Steve Schmidt did acknowledge that the MLP Broadband Committee did not vote to do that as a unit. There was disagreement among the members, not, there might have been, a majority, but it wasn't determined. There was not a full agreement on the committee that this was the path to go, although it was the recommended path and that was brought forward. And that's not in Bob's minutes, right?
They're called minutes for a reason. It's just, I tried to represent the gist of what happened. I didn't give every single detail and every historic precedent. I tried to give the discussion, the disagreements there was disagreements.
You
We
know,
had a
Bob,
vote that was a split vote. I'm sorry.
nobody's
but-
criticizing your minutes.
Okay, I'm just
He's
trying to
just asking to
explain.
have one other
if I
thing
left
answered,
something
that's
out,
all.
Yeah,
I'll just,
there's nothing to argue about. I mean, if the
If we-
minutes to represent the full finance committee's understanding of the meeting,
Yeah,
and
that's all. I
making
mean,
amendment is a very common thing. You've made many yourself, Bob.
writing minutes is a challenge. It's really not an easy thing to do. I've done it for other committees. It's not fun.
So, Jim, I just put up a motion and I didn't hear a second. And then we could finish the discussion and vote, because I really believe we should get through this.
Yeah.
I'm going to second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, do you want to go ahead and vote?
Mhm.
George?
Arvanitis, aye.
Melody's not with us. Bob?
I'll vote aye.
Mr. Hemingway?
Yes, I vote nay. I don't think it should be included.
Cashew, I think I have to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah. Walton, aye.
Mosier, aye.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Tricky, huh?
Okay, motion passes. So the minutes as revised pass for July, whatever meeting that was.
21st.
July
As amended.
21st. Okay.
Okay, so please, should I make that amendment to the minutes, or what's my obligation here? Should
That
I?
would be wonderful, or if Susie could send
Susie,
you.
if you just send me the language, I'll write it up and send it back to you all,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
Yeah, Bob, are you okay with what George suggested too about changing the?
Absolutely, no
Yeah.
problem.
Thank you.
All right. Can we go through last meeting's minutes? And AJ, does everybody have these?
Mhm.
Okay.
have the oddest thing on my screen. It was saying Bob Groves is talking, but no, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know what it was doing.
There was probably background noise on his microphone.
No, I lost it.
I don't have any edits for September 8th. Those are good minutes.
Who's BT? I should know this.
Sorry, Bruce Turner. No, Becky
Oh,
Torres.
Becky Torres.
Oh, Becky Torres. I knew I should know it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I usually use the initials if it's a FinCom or somebody in our
Right, makes
regular
sense.
group, and then I try to use the full name if it's a guest.
When I was writing minutes for the personnel board, I do all shorthand, and then I do copies and replaces.
Yeah, yeah. If this is an issue, let me know. Otherwise,
No, it's
can-
not. This won't happen to me again.
all right.
Yeah, I'm okay with these minutes. I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Is everybody else still is everybody good reviewing?
Yep.
Everybody's read through? I'll second. George?
Arvanitis, aye.
Groves, abstain. I wasn't present.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. And AJ, you okay with how to forward these to get these entered
Yes.
into
Yeah.
once approved?
Yeah, Bob, if you want to send me when you are done with the 721, just send them to me and I'll include them in the same email that I sent to the
Yeah.
clerk.
Okay.
Okay. Next item, we have finalized budget planning letter and worksheet. And Becky sent something out earlier today that talks about recaptures some of the comments that we discussed in our last meeting with regard to the budget planning letter and worksheet. So everybody has those?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to take a look at the letter first? Town of Shutesbury budget request for fiscal year 20.
It should say 22.
What's that?
It should say 22. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Fiscal
Yeah.
22. Sorry.
Okay, so we have a change to line 2.
Yep.
Jim, I know we argued about this, but shouldn't we say something about, we encourage people to consider making reductions this year rather than just give everyone a level service option?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the bullet points that we
Yeah.
that we captured for this letter.
I have them here.
Yeah, they're in the,
Or
they're in the
AJ.
minutes.
Okay.
Becky?
Yeah?
I did not receive that email. What time did it go out?
Yeah, there were like between 3 and 5:30. There were 3 different ones.
I didn't see any of them, so let me just look again here, but I have to, I'm going to be taking a chance. I won't be back. We'll see.
Okay, I'm gonna try to forward them to you all right now.
I got them.
I didn't get
I got
ready.
it too.
So I just did the FinCom that usually has everybody. I guess doesn't. My apologies, Bob. Oh, you're listed in the header, but I'm gonna resend.
Okay, thanks.
To speak to Jim's point, I think the discussion at the last meeting was that there should be some language that suggests that departments should prepare or be prepared to modify their budgets with additional reductions if, sort of pending other, budget news. So I think the idea was that, because I think we did have actually some back and forth discussion about this, and there was sort of a point of view that it could be a problem to sort of raise a bunch of alarms when there are so many unknowns, but that it was worth at least including some language that says, be prepared for the possibility that there will need to be budget reductions.
Yeah, I guess my thought on this, if we look at the paragraph that starts with, it's like, what's it, the fourth paragraph? We are asking you to present a level service budget for your department this year. Annual town meeting continues to support services provided in the budget, with the caveat that there may be unanticipated changes as we move through the year. This is our starting point. And then the next sentence down, the state has not even set their budget for this year. The unknowns remain large. I mean, at least from my perspective, I think that captures.
And even the paragraph before it, the second sentence, please review the financial needs required for your department to maintain the current level. Make note of changes that will cause us. All right, never mind. Sorry.
Could I suggest that at the end of that paragraph that says we are asking you to present a level service budget, at the end of that, if we added in, please think through potential cuts to your budget in preparation for the financial situation going south or something.
Yeah, the loss of revenues.
Yeah.
Sure, something like that be fine.
Can I make,
That's a good idea.
In case the financial picture,
Deteriorates.
yes, that's great. In
Yeah.
case.
can I ask why we don't, the languages of choice is level services rather than level funding? Has that been discussed as another way to describe our fiscal goal as a level funded rather than level services, which seems to be a little more a softer target to me, seems to imply that the budget could actually increase.
We debated that. We talked about the difference between the two.
There was a little discussion about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
And so the committee thinks that level services is a better goal than level funding?
Yes.
I do personally, yeah.
I do too. I mean, the revenue picture is still cloudy. It's still murky. So I personally didn't want to start asking people to cut things until we had a better picture, by putting the caveat in that you do need to think about it and be prepared for the possibility that we might not be able to fund your budget. Kind of covers us. And, it means we're being open and honest with the department heads. That's how I view it. And we're not making promises.
Well, the other, somewhat unrelated to that is this idea of 2 weeks of getting the information, the request 2 weeks before the appearance of the department head before us. My view is that I would like to see the finance committee review the request before the department head appears, and that 2 week period would not allow us to do that, it seems to me, unless we meet every week, which may entirely be true, but that would be I think that the best method for efficiently reviewing these things is to have the information privately sent to each one of us, then to have a meeting as a committee where we can review the request before we meet with whatever department head comes before us. Does that make sense to anyone else besides me?
I'm a bit confused, Bob.
I'm just saying that in the past we've had, I've been frustrated personally that we might have a department head, say Tim or somebody, come to us with a with a budget request, and we have not seen it before. We're maybe taken by surprise by some element in it, and we don't have time to discuss it amongst ourselves before he is there making the official request. So, for me personally, if I had time to do my homework before I met with Tim, I would be better able to engage with him on the subject,
Okay.
So I was hoping that this year we could have a little more lead time between the request and the actual meeting.
So what this letter is asking for is that they be submitted by the end of October, which should be almost 2 weeks for everybody, except I think almost even the first meeting. And we'll review the calendar for that. But so the goal has been that we get them distributed to the committee, like you said, at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting, so you can do your research. Were you saying that you want them at the meeting before meeting with the person, or is it?
Well, I just thought it would be useful. This is something we talked about in the past, that it'd be useful for us to be able to do our vetting of whatever proposal comes before us before we meet with the principal, And so I just hope that we can, to me, the idea would be to get the information, say on an email or something, and then have a meeting of the finance committee, and then that followed at some point by a meeting with the department head. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You want to discuss so if you're meeting with the police at like October 28th, you want to have the budget October 10th and reviewed at the prior meeting of the finance committee. You want to go through the budget without the person?
Yes, I do.
That's
what I'm saying.
Person?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I had never understood you to say that before.
That's what I said last year, and that's what I said the year before. But maybe I didn't make it clear. I hope I can make it clear now. That seems to be a better way to do business, to be able to meet without having, just as a committee and review the application without the department head there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have
the purpose of that?
Say that again, Becky.
It's okay. I'm confused by it. It's okay.
I guess my immediate reaction, Bob, is that in an ideal circumstance, that would be a kind of a useful luxury to have that additional time. I feel like the calendar is quite packed, and the workload for us is pretty significant as it is right now. It does sound to me like we would be adding quite a bit of additional meeting time to be able to have a sort of a separate formal discussion of each department's budget in advance of them presenting to us. The only alternative that comes to mind is, if during these meetings we wanted to reserve, the first half of them, the first half hour or something, to having a discussion before the department head comes in. Maybe that's a way to accomplish some of what you want to do and also not add, like additional meetings to our schedule. But
yeah, it seems like doubling the number of meetings that you're having with each department, but that's
I don't think that
take more time.
I don't think that's true at all. We can just, do maybe at the end of our upcoming meetings, we can just have a review of what is coming up and then discuss, whether there's some serious things to consider. In most cases, probably not, but just to save them all till, to when the other department heads show up and then be confronted with them. We just deserve, I think, a little bit more time to look at these things more closely.
But we as individuals will have a full week to review them before, under the current plan. It's I thought the suggestion was that in addition to having a week for us to review these budget requests, that we also want to have reserved some time for committee discussion of those budgets in advance of the department heads presenting to us. And that's, I think, I think it's probably naive to think that we're going to have like a brief 5-minute chat at the end of every meeting. I mean, these things inevitably lead to longer discussion. And when, it's not going to be like a quick 5 minutes. Let's talk about what's coming up next week. I mean, it's going to be, if we're going to do that, it's going to result in significant time and discussion, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound real practical, but I'm wondering, Becky, if everybody turns their budgets in by the end of October, and then you have all the budgets, would you be able to distribute everyone's budget to us in the first or second week of November? And then we could look through them all on our own schedules. And if anybody has any particular department that they think we need to talk about before that department arrives, they can raise that. I mean, how many departments are we really going to challenge on their budget? When, the school is going to be the big one we always have to prepare for in advance. Most other departments, it's a short conversation. There's only so many lines in the police department. There's only so many lines in our budget. I'm not sure that we need to talk about every single one, but if a member of the committee thinks that there's one or two that really do require some conversation, I'd entertain that.
Yeah.
I just don't think we should look at every single one and have a meeting before every department head shows up. It's not practical.
Yeah, it will vary by department, but just having a time that we can set aside for stuff that's just sticks right out, so to speak, I think would be at a minimum would be a good idea. And I can almost think of what departments might bring this to the fore, such as buildings, big items like that. Police department, probably not, but I don't know. But just to set aside a little bit of time so that we could, so that any one of us could bring up important points about something that they've spotted in these upcoming reports would be very helpful.
Becky, I thought the school can't even do their budget until January. Wasn't that something you had
Correct.
mentioned last?
I won't be able to get the region or the elementary school budgets until January.
Well, we'll get the region when we meet with the region, right?
Yeah, it could be in December, but definitely not the end of October.
And definitely not before we meet with them.
Right, and especially this year when the state budget for this current year isn't complete, and for the schools, the state budgets are key because, well, if we get information about the enrollment numbers, it'll give us some direction about Chapter 70 for this current year, but it won't really, yeah. So those two kind of, we'll get them as soon as we can so everyone can review them. I'll let you know when the budget presentation happens, so you can even listen in on the budget presentation meetings with the school committees, especially at the region. Those are very lengthy meetings usually, and you can feel free to review the information as soon as it's available. But hopefully on everyone else, except for the treasurer's, has a number of elements in his that he does the budgeting for, or reports what's required, like the health insurance rates, and that's based on the health insurance trust, and they're voting their decisions, which often isn't complete until January or February. So a number of the larger pieces are, don't fall into this timetable, but we can make sure that the ones that do, we can be prepared to.
Well, just one comment about the schools. I just want to remind everybody that we meet with both the Shutesbury Elementary School and the regional school twice. So even though we won't get our budgets until we sit down with them, we are going to have time to digest them and bring up any issues we have in a subsequent meeting with both of those, right?
Yep.
I just want to try to make my suggestion maybe a little clearer than I did. I felt frustrated in the past that I didn't have time to think upon or review certain elements of different departments' budgets in advance of meeting with them. So I wanted to structure our process in a way that I thought would be an improvement over what had been done in the past. I don't anticipate that we are going to add additional meetings to, say, review the police department budget. If we got the information well in advance of the meeting with the chief, then we could discuss that information as part of one of our regular meetings and get a sense of how we, as a committee, will respond to this request. So I just think that's a useful thing to do, not in the presence of the chief, to have more freedom of our comments as a committee, without being in a situation where we had to make an immediate judgment on a request with the chief present. So I don't think it's going to add a lot of work to the committee to structure something like that. I think that what George recommended, that if we get the information with plenty of lead time, then one member or more can maybe add an item to the agenda to discuss, or just bring it up in one of our regular meetings. I think that would be useful and help us do a better job. That's all.
Yeah, go ahead, Susie.
You can go first, Jim.
Yeah, I had a similar concern to you, Bob, as far as how this is how we've seen this in the past, and that is usually not until the meeting happens and with the department do we see the information, and I think we've addressed that particular issue with what we're doing here with the 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. And for me, what's important, at least from my perspective, is for me to be able to review this information with some advance and allow me to do my homework so that we can all work together when we sit down with the departments and we're well prepared by doing our homework. We're well prepared for that discussion. And we're all going to have our own questions, I think, as a result of that. And I don't think we need to have all of our questions in alignment or whatever before that meeting. I think the purpose of the meeting is to answer all of our questions and whatever homework we've come up with, and then we're going to learn some things during that meeting with the department heads, and then from that we'll convene together as a team,
Right.
and go from there.
We don't have to make a decision that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie.
So I think that's important to see it as a dialogue process. By having the information ahead of time and writing up our questions, we can have the meeting with the department person to ask those questions, to gain a better understanding, rather than try to make some decisions based on what the written proposal says before we ask questions.
Becky.
And it would give an opportunity, if you come across questions that a department head might not be prepared for, to ask him to be prepared for a specific question or have specific information available. So that could be helpful.
Yeah. Becky, is that realistic that you'd be able to get all of all of the departments' information by the end of October, with the exception of school?
I'm hoping so. A lot of the budgets haven't changed more than a few dollars in a long time, so it shouldn't be too hard for most everybody.
So we should be able to expect as a finance committee to see this information from all but the school department by early November.
Like I said, some pieces will be missing, like the health insurance, and there will be missing pieces, but we can do our best.
Yeah. Okay. So getting back to the letter, is there anything else here that we want to take a look at, or potentially adding, modifying, have questions on, whatever?
So was the language that we talked about adding at the end of the paragraph that starts out with "we are asking you to present," from the minutes of last meeting, AJ wrote down "prepare for potential budget reductions." How did that translate into the sentence we wanted to add to the letter?
Yeah,
Major.
Becky, I think you had a proposal there, didn't you? For what that sentence would look like?
And I had that as, I didn't have that exact language written down, Susie, so we could use that instead of what, the other one that I just read, which would be, please think through potential cuts to your budget in case the financial situation deteriorates.
By the way, Becky, I never received those emails, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay, so I just resent everything. So what is, Bob, could you just say what your email is? And
rlgroves1, numeral 1 @gmail.com.
that's what I have listed in the email.
Okay, I went to the Gmail app too to see if it was stuck in there, and I guess I'll try that again and see. I don't know why they would put you in spam, Becky. I mean, that's really insulting.
Well, maybe you
Not
blocked
personal,
me.
right?
I didn't mark you as spam. No way.
I show that all 3 emails were sent successfully at my end, but I will try them all again. I'm not sure if it's helping. Do you have an alternate email?
I have Robert Groves at verizon.net. That still works.
Okay, I'll try that. And it's spelled out Robert Groves. I know
Yeah.
it's there somewhere.
Yeah, I see it. rlgroves1 @gmail.com for this.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what
I just didn't get it. So
was sent out 4:15 today, Bob.
You checked your spam, Bob?
They're
you
not
said?
coming in. They're going into junk or somewhere. They're not getting through.
I'm not used to working with the iPad, but I always get all my email on the iPad. I mean, I spend a lot of time trashing it, but I didn't trash your email. That's for sure. Let's see. Yeah.
Shoot, I'm sorry, Bob. It was Robert L. Groves
No,
at,
Robert Groves. No L there, I think.
at verizon.net.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay, so we have one additional sentence inserted. Anything else for
A minor thing, in the paragraphs below it, attached is the FY20 budget request form, should be 22.
yeah, 22?
And I'm
Hello?
sorry, were we okay with the please think through potential, or did you want to change it to prepare for potential of, and I didn't, AJ's comment?
I like the sentence you have, Becky.
Yeah.
Please.
I thought it worked.
And it fits, fills that role. Okay, thank you.
Nice job incorporating all our changes and all the items.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Cool. Do we need to vote on this, or is this?
Yeah, if you want to approve, so if everybody agrees, I can make those changes and this can go to the departments, right?
Right.
If you want to vote on it, that would be great.
Or do we want to include do we want to include your spreadsheet, the worksheet that goes with this?
In the approval?
Yeah, yeah.
Then why don't you look it over first then, because you probably will have changes.
I have one more little suggestion for the budget request letter. We could cut off it says the impact of COVID-19 the first time, and then it just calls it COVID later. And I think it's easier to have less numbers. So we could just call it COVID, skip the 19.
Okay,
No numbers.
got it.
And then here is
The heading on the form has the wrong year too.
I know. I brought that up when we started, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah, and also in the second sentence there, or in the header of the, oh, no, that's right.
right
Never
there.
mind.
Maybe FY20 was a very good year.
Definitely not.
Oh,
So this is basically the same format. Is this we added the prior year's budget in here.
Yeah,
like
That's-
21.
Is there enough space at the bottom for long-range capital needs? 3 sentences seems a little
But the
thin.
the issue is they need to provide the full details for their capital request to the capital planning. This is just a small notation. It's not,
Right, but there's no department that's going to ask for more than 3 things is I guess my question.
For long
I'm
range.
sure they could get a second piece of paper.
Okay, seems like we give them a lot of room up top. Okay,
You want it shorter, no problem.
well, I was just thinking moving the long-range capital needs up a couple lines to give them a little more space underneath it. That's all.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
Becky, are you supplying the FY21 budget amount line to which they're going to add whatever their request is? In other words, is that going to be a part of this form, or do we just depend on them to fill in that?
I was going to see which way it's, if I'm either gonna duplicate them and attach them or write them in, because there's
Oh,
some
okay, all right.
only 3 numbers. Others, it's, 25, or like the school, I'm not gonna.
Well,
Sure.
when you do a lot of departments, it's going to add up to a lot of extra work, isn't it?
For the most part, it's pretty straightforward, so.
I think it's a good idea. I'm just thinking about the practical side.
Do the departments get the same expense sheets that we get?
Most of them do, yep.
So they could get their own information right off that?
Yeah, and a lot of yes, and I can reference that too. I can just tell people to look at their expense sheets if they have more than a few,
Mm-hmm.
like we always do when we review the budgets, like the finance committee does.
so are the department heads, they're going to fill in the prior year? Or is that going to be pre-populated for them?
That's what I asked.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm gonna pre-populate or make sure that the expense report is attached. See, last year's final, but this year had,
I think it really ought to.
last year's, Susie, so I think it's easiest for me just to populate it unless it's excessive. I'll find a way to do it that's
Yeah.
more streamlined as I can.
Is there any way to put more than 2 years in this document so that we can see historic trends of more than just 1 year to another?
You have that information in the budget,
Okay, yes.
right? Do you,
Yeah, we do.
okay.
Okay, any other changes to the worksheet?
Good.
We want to make a motion on both of these together to accept both of these together as modified?
I make a motion to accept both forms together as modified.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Arvanitis, aye.
Groves, I just received this thing this second, so I can't really, I haven't been able to read it yet, so I'm going to abstain right now.
Okay.
It did come in on the Verizon email address, Becky.
Okay, I should change that then.
I don't know about that. Verizon's discontinued it, so it's an AOL forwarding system that they use, but
I'll
I
add,
think,
how about I'll add that address? And
yeah, that's not a bad idea. Then I'll get it twice,
Good idea.
or at least once.
Okay, Jim, we're up to you.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. Okay. Department budget review schedule. We talked about, and I think Becky, I think you sent us out all a calendar from last year of when we sat and met with each of these departments last year. for our reference. And we talked about what we want to do this meeting is to set some dates for this year and maybe use last year's history as a guideline.
And
That sound-
that's what I attempted to do where practical. It's not identical because we're, where we're starting and everything else is different. So, so why don't you guys look it over and see if it's acceptable the way it is.
Becky,
Okay, this is from September 8th.
Becky, there's 3 shaded rows. Are they shaded for a particular reason?
I don't see any shaded rows.
Oh, well, the calendar I opened had,
That's the the previous one. She also sent out a proposed one in the last group of stuff, right?
okay, all right.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
today there's a
Just-
calendar starting with September 8th, the last meeting, and September 22nd, and it was in the second email this afternoon, maybe 5.
5:37.
536?
Got it. Thank you. Got it. Oh, yeah, with all these things.
Yeah, there are 4 attachments. Now, which one are we looking at?
The
Yeah.
calendar, I think it says calendar.
Calendar, okay. That's an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same format that Wheezy was doing, just updated with committee meeting dates for the finance committee, and in the far left, the select board's meeting dates. Just so when we can meet with them and making sure that I can attend to bring, to support.
Becky, do you think we're going to have information from the region about this year's assessment methodology by October 6th? Or?
No, I think it would just be a chance to talk about, what considerations that we need to think about in moving forward in our conversation with the region. I think it's going to be important to have to start having a strategy, and reviewing the OPEB audit would be important. Not the audit, we did that last year, but to review where we are with OPEB and, again, strategize for what may or may not be possible this year.
That'll be our next meeting then.
Yep.
So would you have last year's numbers and any kind of forecast that the finance director might have put together for the methods? You know how they usually have, and maybe I'm thinking back to the working group, but don't they usually project out multiple years for the different methods?
We won't have any new projections at that time, George, I don't think.
Right, but I was just thinking even last year's projections, if
We
they
can
were
use
saying if we,
Yeah, we can use the historical in relationship to what we adopted for this year.
yeah, just something to look at, just something to kind of get our minds to start working on.
Yep.
Sooner would be, soon before the meeting would be great if we could get
Yeah.
it in his hands.
May I ask a question here, just on the subject of state aid to education? What happens when people withdraw from their enrollment log and do homeschooling? What happens to the aid? How does that affect aid? If someone's homeschooling their children? Does it affect it?
I think the school does not receive it.
I agree. I think that if the enrollment numbers go down, which they would, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's going to affect our aid.
Yeah. And the one thing I think I mentioned, I know this might not be on topic, but I believe the enrollments are down from last year. They didn't have final numbers yet, but they're getting Leverett students choicing into Shutesbury, which is helping make up some of the gap of the students that are homeschooling until they can return to the classroom. And the Leverett had a no confidence vote in their principal in June or July. And so a lot of we are seeing more kids from Leverett as a result of that. They have a
Just
brand.
on the same topic, Becky, if you look at chapter 70 of money, that per capita of enrollment versus choice money, how do those two numbers compare? 5,000 for choice. How much is the chapter 70 money about?
Oh, it's built on so many things.
Yeah,
We are getting off topic here.
well, it's going to be an important thing for us to look at as.
No question, no
I-
doubt.
You've just identified why we need to have that discussion at our next meeting. And
Okay.
we can talk about all those issues, not just the assessment, but where the numbers are coming in and the impact on the budget. The revenue side.
And we also know that these kinds of problems are in lots of schools all across the state, and the state hasn't even finished this year's budget planning. So there's some part of this that can be discussed, but there's a lot of no answers.
Exactly why we should be considering it, since we don't have information. We should be planning for contingencies that we can't control. Right?
You know, we're going to react to whatever the environment is as we get closer to town meeting. You know, we shouldn't make extra work for ourselves based on speculation. If the funding decreases and all of a sudden we find ourselves with a shortfall, then we have to strategize about that. But, you know, at this point, this early in the process, I think we should probably just proceed in our normal fashion and see how things land. I mean, the state has only a month to get their budget straightened out, right? So, you know, November, December, we're going to have a much better idea, and maybe we will have to talk about those things. Probably we will, I'm sure. I just don't see any point in us starting to wander down too many dead-end roads until we really know what's going to happen. That's my suggestion.
How about the calendar?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, Becky, and these, you plugged in dates for this calendar year and 21 that match up pretty much with how we ran this process last fiscal year. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, this, from my perspective, this looks like a good template and a way for us to really schedule our meetings right through the fiscal year.
And we can, I'll send this out with a budget request and confirm with department heads that they can make these dates or can't make these dates. So we can try to make adjustments ahead.
Okay.
I'm not clear on how this chart works when we see, like, say look at October 6th. We have an agenda and then it says departments. Does that mean the accountant? What does that mean?
Nothing. That's a separate list that Wheezy had to the side.
Okay, and so
But
those
it's
are
just
not
making
assigned.
sure we check, you know, that we meet with all the people on that list.
Okay, but
And if-
not in that order and not
No.
in those dates. Okay,
No,
Okay.
it's just don't forget broadband.
okay.
And if you have any other departments that have been omitted, we would want to make sure they get listed.
Okay.
And Becky, you feel like we have room in here for any changes in the schedule?
Sure.
You know, people who can't make it. I guess it looks like we do.
We only have one official rescheduled date, but we're ending a bit early. And like the capital planning on March 23rd, that could be a number of things, not just capital planning. And the same with the broadband budget review, that there could be other, there's room for other things to be added. It's just as the core elements that we want to have structured. We should make sure to meet with these folks and then do all the rest of the work that you need to do.
Yeah, as we've done in the past.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, does anybody see any issues with this proposed calendar?
So on December 15th, it has fire chief at 7:15 and library at 7:15.
I better make that,
Huh.
library is supposed to be 45. Thank you, Susie.
All right. And is there another four-town meeting? I see one. Is there another? Were there two?
Well, some years we do have two, but they're not, I mean, they're usually Saturdays, so I didn't try to guess what Saturday it may be,
Okay.
because it,
Isn't it February or something?
Yeah.
yeah, but I
December.
Well, the first one's December.
thought in December and then in February or somewhere, but I didn't really put them in. I figure we'll fill that in as we get to them, because
Right. Okay.
the region's in charge of.
And what about SES? Won't we be meeting a second time with the elementary school?
Where the first one I think is in,
The 12th of January, but I don't see another one on here. And my recollection was that we've met with them multiple times each year.
we have met with them. Sometimes it's when we meet earlier. We've been meeting with them at the four town meetings. They've shown up there. So we might want to add that to the four town meetings since they get 100% attendance. Or we could put them in with, I felt like October 20th is too early because they're still scrambling with not knowing where their budget is this year. But we could add them to another day. Like on the November 17th, we have the highway and prep for four town meeting, and that could be meeting with SES.
Well, no, I thought we always met with SES like the first meeting of the new year, and then we met with them again in March. No?
Yeah, and that's the January 12th is the first meeting of the new year. So it'd be adding the March one.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I always thought we had a follow-up meeting with them as we got closer to finalizing our budget.
I think it depended if there were any changes or not. And if there were no changes, then we didn't schedule another meeting. And if they had any changes, or we did.
All right, so they could fill the March 9th slot if we decided we want to meet with them.
Yep.
Or we could even ask them to show up after the capital planning on the 23rd.
Yep.
All right.
One small thing, I mean, there are a couple of proposed meetings during school holidays, which sometimes affects me. But,
Could
I'm
you
not sure we have
start them, AJ?
so it would be December 29th.
Yeah, and that one's blank.
Yeah. Okay, so that's just a placeholder in case we need to shift.
Yeah.
Okay, and then February 16th is the
It's vacation.
that's winter break. And then I think, let me double check, but I think there's a spring break conflict too. Yeah. So you've got April 20th is tentative, but again,
So if we
you
can
know,
work, we'll try to work. So the personnel discussion is there. Would it make sense? That's a meeting we want to do with the select board. So we could,
March.
meet with them. Okay, the 16th, March. We could meet with them on March 3rd, March 2nd. And take it out instead of the 16th and make that.
Works for me.
that would help me. I mean, again, I don't, if it's only an issue for me, then maybe it's not worth moving it.
No,
but-
it makes sense because
Okay.
generally people that are interested in the school may not be around or, so it could affect personnel board people.
Okay.
And the 420 we'll worry about when we get it to it. Thank you, AJ. That's the kind of thing I'm really looking for.
Yeah.
So if we can spot these things ahead, we won't have to juggle them later.
So you said you moved that to March 2nd, was it? The
Yes,
personnel?
does that work?
Okay. Yep.
Great.
Definitely.
Are you making these changes on your version there, Becky?
I'm just writing them in, so I
Yep.
have hard copy.
Yeah,
And then I'll make them on the master version.
and you just send a revised version out to us so we can fill in our calendars.
Yep. And I think I left it up so I can do it now.
And you're going to do the same thing with the budget letter and the budget form. You're going to send us all a final copy.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm going to paste them to the minutes too. So
Great.
we'll have them there.
The forecasting tool.
Yeah, are we all set with this?
I am.
Okay. Becky, Susie's ready to go to forecasting tool.
Okay. Let me get the right one. Watch, I didn't print it. Can you put it up, Jim, on the whiteboard?
Yep. Am I set up for sharing?
No. I'll suggest. Or you moved. Now you're co-host.
Okay. Let's see. All right, everybody should be able to see Becky's document.
So this
Yes.
is, I'm sorry, was there a question already?
No, I just said yes, I can see it.
Okay, so so the basic format is the revenue is on the top lines. Taking our property tax and state income, local receipts, totaling the levy, state aid and local receipts, adding in the other sources, which, you know, that $20,000 for the Board of Health septic fund. It's all that was there in FY20. As you move to the right, you see in FY21, our state aid numbers were down and our use of other sources was up dramatically. And this is, you know, prior to the special town meeting, so this will have to be adjusted for the special town meeting. If you drop down, you see the budget summaries with general government, protection of persons and property, education, public works, all the summary totals from our budgets. And then in the below the expenses, you see the revenue summary, total expense summary, and then finally the difference line below that. And this, that part wasn't, you know, is pretty straightforward. It gets a little more confusing when we move to FY22. When we move into this year, the summary sheets that we saw in the Sandy Pooler, they generally use the 2.5 across the board for both. Oh, and I'm sorry, and if you look at the top, the summary, the calculations are based on 2.5 across the board. I had played with a 1.5, and I'm sorry, I didn't correct that right there. Those are actually 2.5 across the board. I was just in general practice, that's how these forms are set up, so that you are able to see in comparison if you're heading into a year that you're going to have a problem or negative numbers. If this first year, fiscal 22, was a really tricky one to figure out what to do. I ended up using going back to FY20 and then adding the new growth that we didn't pick up in FY21. And that's how I came up with that assumption of the 5,373,917. And as you see, as you drop down and you go to the 2.5, just the adding the new growth and not adding 2.5 plus a new growth figure was sufficient to balance the budget in FY22 with an estimated 2.5% increase in the budget. And this is just a tool. We all know that what we're going to be looking at this year most likely will not be 2.5% increases across the board in revenue or in expenses. So this is just a starting point to help create a tool to work with as we move along and talk about different scenarios that people might want to do. So that's a general description. The final thing I did on the bottom, which I'd like to do in a more integrated fashion, is in the FY22 column under the difference is a calculation of the tax rate based on that levy figure that that we used in our budget. I'm sorry, the
Becky,
assessment, not levy. Yeah.
I just have a question. If you look at your row 2, and I'm looking at, let's say, fiscal year 24, so,
Yeah.
and you have a 1.5% increase, that says,
And that's what I'm trying, should say 2.5%, 2.5.
yeah, because these formulas are all based on 2.5.
Right, that's what I said in the beginning, that I had played with the 1.5 and changed the formulas all back by 2.5, but I missed the title. So these are
Okay.
2.5. My apologies.
Becky,
Yep.
just the same line, state cherry sheet line, you've got 771,468 written in for FY22. Is there any reason to believe we're going to get that kind of money from the state this year?
Probably only in a miracle, but like
Right.
I said, this is a really tough year to estimate for, and all we can, good night, all we can do, I mean, that's why I'm saying, Bob, this is a starting point.
Yeah, I'm
and-
just pointing out what I know you know, just making it clear that number
Okay.
is coming out
Yeah.
of thin air, because we can expect a substantial reduction in state aid. We got off easy this year, but I don't know how the state's going to pull it off the coming year.
Yep, we don't know. And that's why we're playing with these tools, so that once we start to know something, we can make adjustments.
Right. But we have to be prepared to make adjustments, do we not?
Bob, we have to establish a starting point so we understand how the forecasting tool works. And then we learn how to use it as a tool.
I understand that. I just was making a point that you could stick a different number in there and you'd have a different result in terms of planning. And that's one thing we have to contemplate.
Yes,
Using the same tool.
That's what the discussion will be for.
Yeah.
And that's
And
why
we
I
all-
started to come up with what exactly, so I wanted to stick as close to a starting point, a framework that we all know where we're starting from, and then move from there.
This model looks like it works really well. I mean, it's doing exactly what you would think. If you're raising your revenues by 2.5 and your expenses by 2.5, your budget's going to be balanced each year. So this is really something for us to play with as we get more information or we talk about doing different things. And it's always a guide when you're doing forecasting, especially if you're going 2-3 years out. In the end, it's not going to be right, but at least it gives you an idea of where you're headed and how what could happen. So this is not a tool I think we're going to really base any I don't know, we might make some decisions based on it, but not for the short-term budget so much. But for long-term planning, I don't know, we'll have to see. But it's good. I appreciate, Becky, that we have it and we can play with it ourselves. And
Yeah.
Bob, you should, think about different things that can happen and put different numbers in different rows and see how it looks.
Yeah. And I was also, it was helpful to see that we were still below 25 per thousand if we did use that new growth this year. So I was uncertain what would happen. So it does help give you some guideline that even, I mean, if we weren't in this situation with everything being upside down, FY23 in normal times would still be under $25. And that's the kind of figuring guidelines that I hope will be helpful as
Well,
we.
Becky, may I ask you where you got this growth number? Is that something that you've established, or it's been established by the assessors, or is this something that you're just guessing at?
I used the number that was on our budget sheet that from the assessors. So if you go back to the town budget that from annual town meeting, it's the new growth figure for FY21 that we added and then we backed it out.
Right.
So I just thought, well, maybe if we're moving into FY22, I did not add the 2.5 in FY22. Again, just playing around with something, and I only added the 119,000 in new growth. But it's probably fundamental that the 2.5 should be added. I think that, and then figure out how we back it out. So I think I'm going to make some adjustments so that we can look at our unused levy capacity in a line to help understand the whole picture as it equates to our revenue picture. But I wanted to share this, and hopefully if I do it step by step, everybody will understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask 2 questions? Becky, along those same lines, if we're going to put the tax rate down at the bottom, is it possible that you could break out the taxable levy, what's it called, the value of the property, so that we could also see, because we can talk about the tax rates, but if we see trends in property values up or down, we can adjust for that in the future years to see what the tax rate might really look like.
Okay, and if you look, the 2 extra sheets that I think were with the calendar had a history of the tax rate, and it also has a history of property values, average property value for the town for like 10 or 20 years. So you have that information you can play with too.
Yes, but I'm just thinking if we're going to put the tax rate on here and we're going to watch how it's affected by changes in the upper section, one of the changes we might want to make on this schedule is the property values in future years.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I'm suggesting. And
Yeah.
and
Get that into the bottom somehow. I might need your help.
sure, happy to help. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to do it. To me, that's another variable that, we can look at. If it does this, that, or the other thing, what does that mean in the context of what the numbers look like up top? The other thing I wanted to mention was the miscellaneous line on row 21. That's a big miscellaneous. And I was just wondering if there's 1 or 2 other items in there that are worthy of pulling out and separating, like not necessarily health insurance on its own, but maybe all employee benefits, including the retirement account, the unemployment account, the insurance, because I think there's more going on here and we're not really seeing it.
The reason I wouldn't want to do that is just because the title, each block balances to the expense side. And I think maybe we can find a way to explain it better, because if we start messing with that one, you're going to mess with a lot of different lines. Or we could rename miscellaneous to be human resources. or
Well,
something.
it's a lot of things though, isn't it? It's bonds and insurance, it's, well, I don't know. If that's the majority of it, it just, when you look at a miscellaneous line and it's 1/7 of everything, that's a
Yeah.
little high.
I agree. I'd like to ask the question, you're saying we can play with the spreadsheet, but we don't have an active spreadsheet to play with. I mean, it's not on Google Docs or anything.
No, we all have it.
We do
Send
have
it to
it?
us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have it, okay.
Yeah, I emailed this to you too, Bob,
Okay,
to your new number too, or your new
Okay.
address.
all right.
Yeah,
Well, I
Google,
guess it'll work on my computer, not on this iPad, so I just tried it.
Well, you're gonna need a big screen for this anyways.
Definitely for this budget, yeah.
Great tool. I really like it.
Good.
Becky,
How
just
do
to
we with the miscellaneous? Is that something we're going to try to look at, Becky, to see if that can be
I think
spread out
because
further?
it ties directly to, to the budget. I mean, does that mean we need to change culture and recreation and and we already have the human resource? It's just, it matches up. I think people just need to be more familiar with their expense accounts so they know what it is.
Yeah. And maybe if we just had one example for one of these fiscal years to show how it breaks down.
Well,
So-
all you have to do is look at your expense report.
Okay. All
These
right.
are the same categories that your expense report is divided into.
Okay.
In the middle of page 2 is your general government totals.
All right.
And then protection of persons and property is next. Ends on page 2. And then
Okay.
we have education. So I think the fact that it lines up with your month, your biweekly data is helpful.
Okay. Got it.
I don't think it's necessary though,
Yeah.
but that's fine.
Got it.
Becky, just to clarify one thing, you said that on the revenue side for fiscal year 22, you didn't include that 2.5% increase. Instead you used the new growth figure.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I did, yeah.
Got it.
And I think,
All right.
and I'm gonna play around with it some more. I think if we use the 2.5, we're gonna be, we might be right at the 25. Definitely if we use the new growth and the 2.5. So it's something to play with. I
Okay.
challenge everybody to give it a try.
All right. So how do we want to go forward with this and put this to use?
I think
Other than all of us individually, looking at our own, playing with it and looking at our own scenarios.
Well, I think we bring it back out when we get significant information from the state or on the revenue, like when they assess it, when we go through the recap sheet and set the tax rate for FY, for this current year, we can evaluate it, compare, add some new information to the revenue side, and just bring it out when it's appropriate.
Okay.
And as we go through the budget process, there might be points in time during the year, or maybe even after town meeting, where, we're going to have new information that might have an impact on this. Just to throw it out there, I mean, if we find out something's changed, if we continue to change the assessment method, how's that going to affect education going into the future? If there's new regulation affecting the fire department, does that add something that's going to make it go up more than 2.5? Debt service, are we never going to have debt in the next 6 years in the debt service line? So, and especially debt service when you think about all these big ticket items that are coming down the road. So, I think there'll be points in time when it makes sense to sit down with this and say, here's what we learned. how does that look if we spread, you know, how does that look in the future?
Yeah, like, we'll be talking about the culvert and how to fund it as we go into the new year, and putting that figure in, debt service figure in there, it will really show, you know, what we can do and what we can't do. So that's, you know, it's an ongoing tool as we work with things that have to get done or need to get done.
Do we really have that $22,000 of debt service for fiscal year 22? Well, that, right now, that would be zero, wouldn't it?
I
High
think
school.
right.
Hmm?
I think that it's really the Board of Health shows, that's what the 22 balance is really the Board of Health fund, because it has to be under debt service on the expense side, but it's also on the revenue side. I know
That's the
it's,
septic improvement system?
Yeah.
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 Don't
I
we
think the
also,
difference is short-term debt, which is a smaller number. I'll have to look at that, but
I
Oh,
thought
it's
we
also
also had some
Sorry?
high school debt service, no?
Done. I think it's over.
no, we do have ongoing debt service for the high school. You're right. So that's probably, that could be what it. It's debt excluded, but it's a on the override side 34. Well, I'll look into that. Flag that line.
Is that called the Amherst Pelham debt in the expense report, so we get?
In the education section.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's 28,748.
Yep.
The other thing we can do is get information from other towns in the DOR that will filter into this tool as things open up and go along.
So if you look on the expense report on page 4, at the top is debt service, and that's the 22,435. It's the septic for the 20,435 plus $2,000 for short-term notes.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one.
Page 4 of
The expense report.
expense report.
It's dated what, which expense report? Because I got too many.
Friday the 18th.
17, the one I sent out this week. Or last
Yes,
week.
it went out Friday the 18th. It was emailed.
So that's where that number's coming from for FY21. And that's why it's helpful to have the expense report to back up. And so if you have questions about the numbers listed on FY21, they should match up with the debt service. I mean, the expense report of the same name as listed here.
I didn't get that either, Becky, by the way.
I sent it to the Verizon account.
Really? I mean, just now?
It was probably a half hour ago. I'll do it again.
Okay, well, no, I got the ones that you sent, the 3 that you sent this evening. But you said it was sent Friday.
Oh, the expense report you didn't get. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Becky, I should see that on page 3, not page 4.
That's the right date.
Dated the 17th.
Yep. So bottom of page 3?
Yes.
Okay. It's the line reads total debt service.
Page 3 on mine.
So where would that school debt be from, come from? Was that you and George were referencing earlier?
No, as Susie said, it's in the elementary, it's in the education section.
It's on page 2, the last one of the education entries,
Oh, okay.
line 800.
Okay, got it. Thanks. No, this will be a nice tool, Becky.
Good. And we'll try to improve it as we go.
Any other comments or discussion on this agenda item? Ready to move on? Capital plan process and objectives.
I think we're gonna have a bigger meeting on this in a couple of weeks, reviewing the whole capital plan. But I did want to include, Jim had been asking for a listing of what we spent on capital items over the last years, and every year at town meeting, I provide a listing. I add to the list of what was requested for capital items. There you go. So I just wanted everyone to to know they have this available to them. I took it off the website, so it is there. It ended up on the select board page under, we're trying to reorganize everything, but finance committee things for town meeting all ended up collected together with the warrant, the annual town meeting warrant and motion. So I just want you to be aware of, what the listing of what has been requested and what has been approved since FY13.
Yeah, thanks, Becky, for putting this together.
Sure.
Becky, you said you also had a most recent version of, or a relatively updated version of the forward-looking.
Yeah, the capital plan.
35-year plan.
Yep, the capital plan itself goes through some updates. I've got a request out to our department heads to get updates on their vehicles, confirming that we have them all listed correctly. And we collect that information for the capital planning committee, just to have on file, and for the capital planning committee to review the capital plan as they start off. They'll be having their first meeting October 7th to review. And then it seemed important, especially with new members and returning members, to review the capital plan at a finance committee meeting to have some sense of the magnitude of costs that are entailed in keeping up all our facilities, vehicles, as well as the operational expenses with salaries and people. But it's the capital plan side that we'll be reviewing in a couple weeks. I mean, in a couple meetings. And I'll have that out to everyone. It's kind of a awkward document because it's a long spreadsheet. So I'll get it out so everyone knows how to maneuver it before we have a meeting to discuss it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that'll be really helpful for us. Both of what we're looking at here now, as well as the forward-looking, the plan for the 35-year.
Yes, that I think so too, especially when we have some very large, the school roof and the culvert that are imminent there, that we have to figure out how to handle. The culvert has to be handled because it's in process. So hopefully we can maintain everything else during this bad time. And the roof, of course, needs to be addressed.
Okay. Any other discussion? Capital plan. Want to get into the expense report review?
Sure.
And this is what you said. Did you send this September 7th? You sent this today?
No, this was the 18th.
18th. Okay. But it's as of the 17th.
Right. I emailed it on the 18th.
Emails it the day after it's done. Thank you, Becky.
Thank Gail. George, could you forward it to Robert Groves at Verizon.net? I'm having trouble getting back to my
Yeah, I'll do
emails
it right now. Yeah. Let me just find it.
Oh, that helped a lot too. Thank you.
So, Robert, is that what you said?
Robert Groves at Verizon.net.
Robert Groves, so no periods in the name, just Robert Groves straight at Verizon.net.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob, it'll be there shortly.
Thanks.
Becky, is there anything that you wanted to point out?
I just want, because we still haven't finally closed out the year, we're still waiting on a couple adjustments from the elementary school. Some things, some beginning balances don't show up. Oh, it looks like she got most of them in this time. So that's much better. So if you were to look before, when you looked at some of the accounts, like the Fund 30 accounts, there were a lot of negative balances because, oh, there still are, because the years prior, no, here it is. They're showing up now. Okay, everything's looking better.
Becky, did we ever get an expense report for the final spend for fiscal 20?
I requested that tonight. It won't have, she said it's not the final because of the school, but I just got, I just requested it tonight.
Okay, so it hasn't been finished. That's fine. I didn't have it, so now I know why. Okay.
That's why.
Yeah,
When
okay.
it's complete, I will be sharing, forwarding it to you. She usually, when it's the final one, she'll write final on it, and then I know it's good to go.
Yep.
As far as, let's see, I didn't see anything alarming in the expense report at this point.
Well, I was curious about the
The
elementary
debt,
school.
the Amherst debt ended up being higher than I had budgeted for. So that's a problem. I'm not sure when they changed it, and I've been having real problem getting notification from the new finance director about things. So I've got to hound him about that. So that's a problem under the Amherst Pelham debt. There's a negative $3,316.
So would that come out of FinCom reserve? Where would that, what resource could be applied to that?
FinCom reserve could be applied to that if that is a final number, or a year-end transfer.
This says actual expended as 32,000. So is that a final number for this fiscal year? Or
This is for the current year. This is fiscal 21.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, or is there more coming?
No, they usually bill it once.
Okay,
They bill the assessment at one time.
okay.
Probably when they pay the debt service.
But I have to find out why that happened.
So Becky, I wanted to ask about the elementary school line. Um, three months into the new year and they've only spent 10% of their budget. Seems a little low. We don't miss.
Yeah, I can ask about it. It might be that some things are not posted yet because they haven't closed out the other year. But I will ask.
Well, I suppose I can be patient for another cycle if that's fine. I don't think you need to do extra work. Right now it looks great. I don't believe it.
School's only been open for a week, so I guess, I don't know if the
Yeah, but
spending kind of goes down in the summertime, but
Well, I think
I think he's right. I think, well, teachers can select to be paid 12 months instead of 9
I
months.
see.
And a number of teachers are um,
Our
But-
9-month,
are on the
I
12
see.
month. But it's split. So half are on the 9 month.
well, that's going to explain part
That
of it
would
for sure.
explain some of it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The regional budget spent out 25%, so that's another way to compare what's going on.
Yeah, and we're also we're at the end of September, so most every line with ongoing labor costs in particular are going to be 25%, 20.
I think Amherst is quicker to close out their books. So this is a good one to review again to see if it changes once the books are closed or not.
And Becky, I wanted to ask you, just so I understand the line, above elementary, about 10 lines above it, emergency management phone notification. Well, how come they spent 3/4 of their budget already?
Well, they have fully paid for the notification plan. This is another line where it's paid 100%.
Got it. So if they have a lot of emergency notifications through the winter, say, this line's not going to change because it's all paid for already.
Right, it's a one-time payment.
Got it. Thank you.
And when we changed to code red, the price did go down, so we can make that adjustment in the budget for next year. Any other questions?
on the first page, town collector's expenses.
Yep, she also pays like a lot of her fees in the beginning of the year. She has to pay for her software maintenance agreement, and I think that's the majority of it. It's similar to the accountant. If you look
Okay.
at the accountant expenses, she just had to pay like $5,000 for that.
Okay.
Yeah, 4,000. So a lot of these things at the beginning of the year are paid in, the major pieces are paid in full.
Police wages look kind of low too. They spent 16% of that line, but there's still some vacancies there, right?
Yeah,
Becky?
yeah, because Christine is, some weeks she's a full 40, but often she's a 32-hour week. So that's bringing that down. And Tyler is just working one shift a week part-time. So and we've bundled all the, like the cell phone lines and things that only get paid out twice a year. All those stipends are bundled into the total as well.
Can we get salary savings when the beach closes for the season?
I'm sorry, what?
When the DCR beach closes at Lake Wyola, Does that decrease patrol hours to some extent?
No, they just patrol in different areas.
Are they staffed at the level that's going to be continuing for a while?
I am so Marcus is heading to the academy in about a week, I think on the 28th.
Mhm.
And so it's hopeful Tyler will pick up more than one shift a week and have him at least at 2, and Kristen, when she can, will be up to 40 through that period.
Becky, on page 6, recycling.
Okay, page 6 is Fund 22. Those are all revolving accounts. These are your revolving accounts. So recycling revolving account. And what is your question?
Well, we're about 40% of budget we spent through the year.
This is not a budget. Revolving account takes in money throughout the year and spends money. So we collect trash bag money, we collect LTS sticker money, and that all flows into this recycling revolving account. And then, like, I'm about to make I'm going to buy 25,000 trash bags in this week. That's going to cost about $5,500. So that cost will come out of here, and then we'll, we've distributed much of the free bags, and then we go into the season that gets more, more and more people demand trash bags as we get, into the winter and spring, and we sell them for $20 for a bag of 10. So then we keep putting money back in here. So you're going to see money coming in and money going out.
Okay.
You're going to have more demand this year. Everybody's home making trash.
Yeah, I think our tonnage has been up,
Yeah, I bet.
but hopefully the recycling will increase too. I mean,
The MRF doesn't reimburse us anymore, right?
I'm sorry?
The MRF doesn't pay anymore.
Right. Well, we got a small amount, but it was I think it was closing out last year. But going forward, we're getting billed about twice as much as they used to mail, that they used to give on top of the fees going up. So it might, and especially with all the additional trash, that's going to be a line to really keep our eye on. We might, very likely to see a shortfall in that line.
Which line, Becky?
It's the hauling, what is it called? Here. It's where we pay the trash.
Rubbish recycling hauling.
Yes.
Okay, page 3.
On 290.
Yeah, 290.
Becky, are you saying the tipping fees in that? Or the tipping fees are lower, aren't they? That's sanitary landfill.
Okay, so we have sanitary landfill, and then we have the rubbish and hauling. The rubbish and hauling is where we just pay the trucks to haul it. We have a contract just for them to pick it up. And then it's the sanitary landfill that is where we pay for the tonnage that actually goes into the landfill.
Got it.
And there's a recycling line, right?
No, this is on
That's what that is at 290.
Yeah, right.
290 and then 695.
It looks like they're pretty much on track so far, right? Spending wise.
Yeah.
But I think they bill quarterly, and I just received a bill that it was like, I think around $1,300. And if we get those quarterly, it'll be like 6,000 more than we normally had, than we got billed before. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but it's one to keep our eye on.
Okay.
And we're getting near the end of our rubbish and recycle hauling contract. So that's going to be dicey. We got an amazing deal this year. This contract, the other bids were in the 90s, and one was over $100,000. But we got this contract that started, at 65, close to where we had been. So that's another one to keep our eye on. It could go up a lot.
How long are those contracts good for? 3?
5 years. And I think this is year 4.
I don't have any questions about this.
Yep. Anybody else? Questions, concerns? Good to move forward? I have school plans cost update. Anything new on the school front, Becky, that you're aware of, or?
Not very much. I did not hear back from the region on what they needed for PPEs. He said they were still working on that. And they were hoping so I don't know how much of our CARES money they will need. So I'm afraid I don't really have an update.
Okay. One thing I did not put on here for agenda item is reports from other committees that FinCom members may be part of. And has anybody participated in meetings, school or broadband or others that want to provide an update?
I did not pay attention to the fact that the school had a meeting and I should have been there. I will do better.
Remind Susie.
I need to put I have the prompts from the my town government, but I didn't put the school one on, so I missed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And we're hoping to hear, I know there's a talk, there's talk about the union negotiation. They're setting up an executive session for it. The school did discuss it at their last meeting, I think an executive session, and there'll be more conversations about the union contract are upcoming.
Becky, I'd like to ask you, how does that work? Who participates in that negotiation for the town?
I'm sorry?
For the town.
For the town. This year, in the past 2 years, it's been Elaine Paleo on the select board. This year, I was assigned to it, and but they haven't met yet. Only the lawyers have had conversations. I just got forwarded a little bit of information, and they're going to try to do a Zoom meeting coming up.
So you're saying that you're the person who's going to negotiate with the union representatives?
I'm one of 5.
Right.
The majority all come from the school committee and the superintendent and the principal. So there's the school side, and then there's the there's the teacher side, and then there's the school committee with the guidance of the school administration. They have a lawyer, and this year I was asked to participate in the negotiation with them.
But so the town is represented by the town administrator and the school committee?
The town is always represented by the school committee, and they usually have one person from the town side.
But isn't the superintendent considered is that considered sort of the town side, or is that a?
Yeah, she advises the school
And
committee.
Jackie would be part of the town too, of the town side.
Right, and
Right.
the teachers are the other side. They're the union.
Yeah. Who on the school committee is part of that group, Becky?
Jen, Malcolm Brown, and Katie. What is Katie?
Viander.
Viander. And I'm not sure who the third person is.
Mhm.
As we have not met yet. We were supposed to meet in March and for the first time, and that did not happen. Bob, you seem to be frozen. Can you hear us? He's having trouble keeping the video
He
going.
just
Dropped
went off
off.
screen.
Yeah. He's probably gonna try and log back on.
Good.
Yeah.
What's
Any
left?
other committees? You said capital planning hasn't met yet.
Not yet.
Personnel board hasn't met.
yet.
Yeah. Okay. Any other?
Did you have a question you didn't finish?
Bob, you're in mute.
I just turned it off, I think. Did I not?
You're good now.
Okay, I just wanted to know, be clear about how these negotiations, who represents the town and the taxpayers' interest in these negotiations?
The school committee is the majority.
The majority of the town's representatives are the school committee?
Yes, it's the school committee's job.
Okay. And there's no finance committee involvement whatsoever in this? Am I right about that? Okay.
Well, Elaine is she representing the select board or what's Elaine's
She
role?
was asked to do it. She was from the select board.
Okay,
And it's either the select board or the town administrator.
okay.
And like I mentioned, Bob, you weren't here, that
I think we might have lost Bob again.
Oh, he's here.
He looks frozen.
Oh, he's a statue.
Either.
Well, I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can call him because I think he doesn't have enough bandwidth for Zoom.
Yeah.
Because he's been struggling with it. Okay.
Okay. Anything else we want to cover? Oh, we're 1 minute late.
So October 6th?
October 6th, our next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. You want to have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. 2 seconds. You want to vote? There he is. Bob, we just made a motion to adjourn, but is there something else that you want? Well, is there something else you want?
You're mute.
You're mute.
You have to unmute.
You're mute.
You're muted.
I would like to go back to Shutesbury where the internet is really good.
That would be great.
At the next meeting, are we going to be talking about the regional school assessment methodology and review the OPEB audit? That's that agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you send us the,
You said OPEB, but not the audit, right? Right, Becky?
You know, it's not the audit. It was the audit last year. This time we're going to go over George's spreadsheets and just make sure we're all understanding where we're at with OPEB.
do we have the latest audit report?
For OPEB or just audit report?
Oh, so when I updated that for you last year, I used the most recent audit report.
We should have it. I'll reach out to Tom Scanlon because it should be here any day.
Because if you're gonna use that schedule and present it to everyone, then we should have the most up-to-date expenses. You know, the annual expenditures off of one of his schedules. He always has that. We need to get that in there.
Okay, I'll send it to you and then you can hopefully prepare it in
Oh, I
time.
was hoping you'd do it.
Oh,
All right. Send it to me. I'll do it.
just
Should be
tell
able
me
to get
where
it
it is and how to do it. I'll have to call you because I haven't done it before.
No, I'll do it. Send me the report. I'll update it. And I'll send it to you and you can double check my numbers.
Well, let's keep arguing. No.
Okay.
Easy.
All right.
Susie, what was the other item you had other than OPEB?
I'm
Next
looking
meeting?
at the schedule we approved earlier.
Regional assessment.
Regional School assessment methodology.
So I'm gonna get copies of where we ended up last year and what those calculations and projections were and send those to you guys.
Great.
So we have those.
We got to do homework.
Jeez. Okay, we did have a motion that was seconded to adjourn, but then we lost Bob and then we got Bob back. Do we want to continue with that or do we?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Governitis, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Walton, aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night,
Ahoy.
everyone.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Bye.
You'll
Take
have a
care.
good- you'll have a good week.
You too.
Good night.